Okay, so our word web. Okay, so our word web. We're looking at the full screen here. Oh, maybe not. Hang on. Let me try that again. Okay, so we have bonding in the center, and we can subdivide bonding up into covalent and ionic and metallic. We're going to go ahead. We've already been quizzed on ionic, so just real quickly, right? We've got electronegativity differences greater than or equal to 1.7. We've got the metal and the nonmetal. So tip off right here, if there's a metal present, it is ionic. And the metal is donating electrons to the nonmetal. We know how to do Lewis dot diagrams for ionic. We have to do brackets around the cation, and cations have no dots, and of course the positive charge would be in the upper right. And then for the anions, they get all 8 dots. We still need brackets, and we would put the negative charge in the upper right hand corner. And of course you also need to know their characteristics. So here's just a couple. When it dissolves in water, which often it does, or when it's melted, that's what molten means, they become electrolytes, and that's because of mobile ions. But they have other characteristics as well that are in your unit workbook. They're hard. That's another example. They shatter, though. They're not hard like a metal. And then metals were on the last quiz as well. So this is when we have just metal atoms. We have the sea of mobile electrons, so they conduct electricity as solids. They do not get dissolved in water, so there are no free ions to make them an electrolyte. And they're malleable, they're ductile. Like I said, they're metals only. They are, their hardness varies. They do not dissolve in water, so they don't make electrolytes. In terms of, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So remember bonding, when we talk about bonding, we think about ionic, covalent, and metallic. Those are intra, so they're within the molecule. And now for all of these things that we're talking about, of course we can look at bonding. Bonding makes compounds if it's ionic. It makes molecules if it's covalent. Compounds, when it's ionic, you can have ternary compounds, and that would mean that there's a polyatomic present. And if there is a polyatomic present, those within that group are held covalently. So if you see a metal and then you see a polyatomic, you have both ionic and covalent going on. Okay, so looking at our covalent side over here, we've got an electronegativity difference less than 1.7 between the atoms. We talked about naming. We're going to use prefixes, but we can also use the IUPAC system. And we did the example with N2O, where if there's just one O comes second, it has to be a -2. That would make each N +1, so that we get the total charge of 0. And we could then name it nitrogen Roman numeral 1 oxide. But we also typically use prefixes when we do covalent naming. These are nonmetals only, and they share electrons, and we can subdivide this into polar and nonpolar. Remember SNAP. So symmetrical is nonpolar, and asymmetrical is polar. So if we look at polar first, we have several shapes that are often polar. They don't have to be, so this is just a general guide. And then there's some drawings here. You should definitely associate water with bent, ammonia with trigonal pyramidal, and there's lots of examples for linear, but carbon dioxide is another good one. Linear is right here. And that's a nonpolar molecule, so that's where your CO2 would go. That's right, I'm on polar, so polar would not be CO2, but would be HF. And then nonpolar, often linear things, but again, there's lots of exceptions to this. Often tetrahedral, but again, if I take one of these chlorines off and put a hydrogen, I've just made that now more polar because now it's more asymmetrical. You do have to think about solubility when we talk about polar and nonpolar, and that's why it's in the middle here, because like dissolves like. So a polar substance will dissolve another polar substance. You also have to think about characteristics. So you've got flammability, right? When we talk about, you guys did that lab where the camphor, which smells like Vicks Vapor Rub, that lit on fire when you melted it, and then it vaporized, and then it lit on fire in the hood, whereas the salt did nothing. They're often soft. Again, that's a good lab to refer to. They usually don't dissolve in water, and therefore they are not, even if they did, like sugar does dissolve in water, but it is not an electrolyte. So Then we've got IMFs, so intermolecular forces, otherwise known as van der Waals forces. If you look at polar substances, they have two options, hydrogen bonding or dipole-dipole. The first thing you're going to do to go between them is look for hydrogens, and those hydrogens have to be connected to an F, O, or N. They're having fun, right? So this is the strongest intermolecular force. If there are H's there, but they're not having fun, or if there just aren't any H's at all, but you still have a negative end and a positive end, then it's a dipole-dipole force. Nonpolar substances have intermolecular forces called induced dipole forces or London dispersion. And this is where size matters. This bigger. Oh, these are the weakest. These are also the ones that will apply to the diatomics. All of the diatomics are nonpolar, all of them are linear, and all of them will have London dispersion forces or induced dipole forces. The one that would have the atomic mass that would be the biggest would have the strongest induced dipole force. So these influence lots of physical properties like viscosity, like we saw today. So if I increase viscosity, I have a stronger intermolecular force. Vapor pressure, which we saw on the graph today. If I increase vapor pressure, that means I also have a stronger intermolecular force. Wait, I think that's wrong. An increase in vapor pressure would mean you have weaker intermolecular forces. So this is wrong. So should be weaker intermolecular forces, right? If I have weaker intermolecular forces, then that means my substance is going to go from a liquid to a gas more easily, and therefore, once I go into that gas phase, I can exert more vapor pressure. So with a weaker intermolecular force, I have a greater vapor pressure. So make sure you fix that. And then you've got surface tension, as well as melting point and boiling point. So remember with these guys, the higher any of these are, the stronger the intermolecular force is. And that's all I have. Good luck tomorrow. Hope it goes well. Thank you.